where the heart is for Benedict Rubbra. Pretty well self-sufficient, he lives and breathes the environment around him, absorbing its delicate nuances into his art.
It's impossible to look for ideas. You have to wait for them to come to you. And they can be a visual experience or it could be a sound experience. But that's the exciting thing for me. Where do these ideas come from? The idea of this comes up unexpectedly. It was a beautiful summer morning and I woke up, opened the windows, and there was this sort of extraordinary sort of golden view. And I sort of put out my arms, a bit like the windows here, as if to sort of hug this marvellous sort of view. The white, in a sense, is me asleep. The white has no sort of time element. And then the white gradually sort of melts or expands into a sort of apple green. The painting here is of the garden, and it's the same, obviously the same subject. This is from the bedroom window, but this is from downstairs. And the interesting thing from my point of view is that you can get really two completely different paintings from one subject. And also the other interesting thing is that I created this garden and I made it as if I was making a model. I made a three-dimensional clay model and all in scale, cut out the right sort of bits for the terracing and so on.
The model, a three-dimensional construction, is built out of all sorts of materials and sometimes has projected light onto it. And it's the painting of the model which is a completed work of art.
The idea with this picture and this construction is that in a sense, it's sort of watching the flower grow. So I start off with this soft green, and then I draw these free lines going across, which gives the idea of sort of growth and freedom. And then on top of that, I lay the cistus flower on that. And these are little bits of paper that have been torn, the edges are torn, and the lovely thing about the cistus for me is the delicacy of it, and I was looking at the cistus and I was also looking at the sky, and I suddenly saw the rather frail edge of the cloud going round the cloud, and I thought, oh, there's something to do with the cloud and the cistus. So by tearing the piece of paper, it gave the impression of the frailty of the flower. And then on top of that, I then placed this drawing of string, which again gave the impression of enclosing the flower. And again, with everything, I can slightly move it to make it exactly how I want it. And there was my cistus, and I looked above it and I made studies of it, and then this is the result of the painting here.
A lifetime of experience and expertise is in these remarkable paintings which resonate beauty. And it all began at Christ's Hospital School in Sussex with an inspirational teacher.
Nell Todd was to me, she saved my life in a sense. She arrived at the school, I'd been there about 2 years, and it was like a breath of fresh air. She somehow sort of recognized something in what I was doing. I didn't know what it was that I was doing. And she used to do sort of magical things in a public school. For instance, speech day, we all had to make amazing hats for her with birds' nests and things like that. And she had a marvelous system of, if you were naughty, her punishment was to go and collect cowpats for her roses, which I thought was so much better than doing lines or being sent to Coventry and things like that.
Music, like an underbelly, weaves through the works. Benedict's father was the composer Edmund Rubbra and his mother Antoinette, a talented violinist.
I think what my father really taught me was the importance of discipline, the precision of what was going on in his mind taught me a lot about how important it is to get precision, but not in fact to aim for perfection. I don't know what it does, but it opens up. It doesn't close doors. Perfection closes doors. One note in a piece of music is so important. It's that one little detail. And it's the same with painting. It's the detail, the things that you don't notice, in a way have the most important. They're superior, the things that you don't see, which is a sort of paradox. I'm not a mathematician, but I'm fascinated with the logic of numbers and how numbers relate to the logic in music. And this painting here, I call it the magic mandala. And the interesting thing is that if you see there's dots or circles, and whichever direction you take, whether it's diagonally across or down, it always adds up to 15.
Benedict studied at the Slade when Lucian Freud taught there. He met his future wife Tessa when her parents commissioned him to paint her aged 14. Coincidentally, Tessa later enrolled to study pottery at High Wycombe Art School, where Benedict taught art. They married when Tessa was 19. Portraiture beckoned and commissions followed.
The commission that I got to do Prince Charles was very, very exciting. I was looking forward to, with sort of trepidation, I went up to the Kensington Palace to do it. I was given 6 sessions, an hour a session. What I felt mostly was that I didn't really want him to be in this uniform, because a lot of the portraits I'd done before, they were all very casual, you know, families, children, their families. And I just felt that he was in a sort of straitjacket. He was confined in a straitjacket. And I just felt, I don't know why, I just felt he was in another world, or it's impossible to say, but he just didn't feel, I didn't feel that he was comfortable with what was going on in the world. But, you know, I met a lot of very, very interesting people, and some of my closest friends, our closest friends, go way back from the time that I, you know, got to know them through the portraiting, yeah. It was my bread and butter. Portrait painting was my bread and butter, and it did give me the freedom to develop my other work.
The couple had 2 children, and Benedict mounted biannual exhibitions in a self-built studio at their home in the Chiltern Hills, where in fact Benedict was born. They moved to Devon in 2001, which is where David Messum first came across Benedict's pictures.
Ben, how lovely to see you.
And you too, nice to see you.
Well, it's great to be down again.
Well, the last time we saw, I think you came down to Devon to choose some pictures for an exhibition of West Country art.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And Jenny Perry had just begun to sort of think about writing a book for you.
She was
curating
the exhibition.
Yeah,
and I think that
got to know
was
you then.
2004, something.
Yeah,
like
it was absolutely. So it's been a long time, but
It has been.
we met incidentally in between, didn't we? And
Yes,
and said to you, I just would love to sort of do something, you know, with you actually. And so this is a moment when we're just beginning to think about it.
As an artist, this is something that we all dream of, is being found in a sense.
Well, you're very kind.
You came to me, I didn't come to you, and I had. You know, right from my early days, I had sort of trouble with dealers in a sense that I used to
Most
go.
people do.
I used to go and they used to say, well, that's very lovely, why don't you try somebody else? And in fact, it was through that I decided, no, I'm going to do it my own way. I'm going to build my own studio, my gallery, and that's what we did. So we had exhibitions where we lived, yeah.
Well, we've always wanted to do something with you, and so this is the moment. And I'm fascinated with this sort of break you took from the Chiltern Hills, which actually isn't too far away from where we are, down to here in Drew Staten. But before that, you spent 6-8 weeks, a month rather, in northern Italy, in Florence, which has made a complete sort of...
Well, 6 months altogether.
6 months altogether. It's made a complete break from where you were to where you are now. And so the landscape down here has had some effect in your latest work too, I suppose, hasn't it? But you've brought all this sort of influence from Italy into it too.
I think what is more important than anything else is the clarity of their work. If you look at a lot of the paintings, particularly Fra Angelico and
there's a great orderliness in your work, isn't there? Actually,
well, it's the order, and Piero della Francesca is to me the king of all painters, really. But there's something about them that is so
complete, perhaps?
Complete, yes. You can't.
I certainly see that in your work.
And every corner is considered, but it's not tight. It's loose. No. And of course, the architecture too has been an enormous influence.
I think the great thing about Ben is that he's a quiet painter. All the essence of what he believes in is hidden within the paintings. It's up to the viewer a little bit to explore further so that you can understand what he's getting at. Ben has an inner soul. His work's really, it's passionate, although it's not dripping with goo or anything like that. It's quiet, and that makes them very decorative, which actually, after all, is a mainstay, I think, for great paintings. They do need to work on the wall, and his do. Look at his portraiture. Look at his paintings now, and you can see there's a master at work.
Back in the studio, Benedict is once more at one with his own unique way of working.
The core of my work is to try and get some sort of balance between control and freedom. I've recently become very interested about writing a poem for each painting, and the poem is really about expressing the space between the conception of the poem and the finished work. I carried a shadow home with me, treasured, then returned with love, to join again the cypress tree. I brought back with me a taste to excite the tongue. I drank, then watched as vine and grape embraced. I returned with the olive, now mine, to contemplate and give back. It needed the lines of gold design. The taste, the shadow, and the olive tree now bind and share the light, caressing the hills of Tuscany.